I stood in the storage room of the Golden Oak restaurant, adjusting the black apron around my waist. At 62 years old, I never imagined I'd be squeezing into a server's uniform, hiding behind a pair of thick-framed glasses and a low ponytail. But desperate times call for desperate measures. Tonight was my husband's retirement celebration, 40 years at Henderson & Associates, and I wasn't on the guest list. My own husband of 38 years hadn't invited me to the biggest night of his career. Richard had told me the company wanted it to be employees only. A formal affair, he said, no spouses. I believed him at first. Why wouldn't I? We'd built a life together, raised 2 children, survived the hard years when money was tight, and the good years when it flowed freely. But 3 weeks ago, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket, a jewelry receipt, for a diamond bracelet, $8,000. I don't own a diamond bracelet. Our anniversary had passed in October with nothing but a card and dinner at our usual spot. Christmas came and went, my birthday too. So who was wearing my husband's $8,000 gift? The restaurant buzzed with activity as I slipped out of the storage room. Servers rushed past, carrying trays of champagne. The ballroom glittered with fairy lights and white roses. I recognized several faces from company events over the years. There was Tom Bradley, Richard's golf buddy, Susan Chen from accounting. And at the center table, my husband, looking more handsome than he had any right to at 65, his silver hair perfectly combed, his charcoal suit impeccable. He was laughing at something. That deep, genuine laugh I hadn't heard directed at me in months. I grabbed a tray of appetizers and began circulating. My hands trembled slightly, but I forced them steady. I'd practiced this. Watched YouTube videos on how to serve at formal events. I wasn't going to blow my cover over a shaky canapé. "Excuse me, miss?" I turned. Tom Bradley was gesturing for a napkin. He looked right through me. 30 years of holiday parties, backyard barbecues, and watching our kids grow up together, and he didn't recognize me. That's how invisible I'd become. That's how little attention anyone paid to the help. Or to the wife. I handed him the napkin and moved on, working my way closer to Richard's table. That's when I saw her. She was young, maybe 35. Honey blonde hair cascading over bare shoulders, a red dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She sat 2 seats away from my husband, but the way she looked at him, I knew that look. I'd worn that look myself. 4 decades ago, when Richard was just a junior accountant with big dreams and I was a secretary who believed in him. Who was this woman? And why was my husband avoiding eye contact with her so deliberately? I positioned myself near a pillar, close enough to hear but far enough to blend into the background. The speeches had begun. Tom stood at the podium, recounting Richard's accomplishments, 40 years of dedicated service. The Henderson merger of 2008, the client retention rates that became industry legend. And through it all, Tom said, raising his glass, Richard has been not just a colleague, but a friend, a mentor, and recently, something even more. My heart stopped. Richard, we're thrilled to announce that even in retirement, you'll be staying on as a special consultant to our newest partner. Tom gestured toward the blonde woman. Everyone, please welcome Victoria Sinclair, who will be taking over Richard's position and who has already shown us that the future of Henderson & Associates is in excellent hands. Applause filled the room. Victoria stood, smiled graciously, and walked to the podium. As she passed Richard, her hand brushed his shoulder. It was brief, almost imperceptible, but I saw it, and I saw him lean into her touch, just slightly, like a flower turning toward the sun. "Thank you all," Victoria said, her voice smooth as honey. "I couldn't have gotten here without Richard's guidance these past 2 years. He's been more than a mentor to me. He's been—" She paused, her eyes finding his across the room. "He's been my inspiration. 2 years. My husband had been mentoring this woman for 2 years, and I'd never heard her name." I set down my tray. My hands were shaking too badly to carry anything. I needed air. I needed to think. I pushed through the service door into the kitchen, past the startled cooks, and out into the back alley. The cold November air hit my face like a slap. I leaned against the brick wall, gasping. 40 years. I'd given that man 40 years. I'd put him through night school while working 2 jobs. I'd raised our children practically alone while he climbed the corporate ladder. I'd smiled at endless company dinners, made small talk with wives I had nothing in common with, pretended I didn't mind when he missed anniversaries, birthdays, and school plays. And this was my reward, being replaced by a woman half my age while he celebrated without me. My phone buzzed. A text from my daughter, Melissa. "Mom, where are you? Dad said you weren't feeling well and stayed home." I stared at the message. He'd told our daughter I wasn't feeling well. He'd lied to our own child to keep me away from this night. I typed back, "I'm fine, sweetheart, just resting." Another lie. We were all liars now. I straightened my apron and went back inside. I wasn't done yet. I needed to know more. I needed to know everything. The party had shifted into its social phase. People mingled, drinks in hand, laughter echoing off the high ceilings. I retrieved my tray and resumed circulating, this time with purpose. I worked my way toward Victoria's circle. She was surrounded by admirers, mostly men, all vying for her attention, but she kept glancing toward the bar, where Richard stood alone, nursing a whiskey. "Excuse me," I said, offering her the tray. "Crab puff?" Victoria looked at me, actually looked at me, not through me like everyone else had. For a terrifying moment, I thought she recognized something, but then she smiled and took a crab puff. "Thank you, these are wonderful." She had a southern accent. "Georgia, maybe. Have you worked here long?" "Just started," I said, "picking up extra shifts for the holidays." "I understand that." She laughed softly. "I waited tables through college. Hardest job I ever had." I didn't expect to like her. I didn't want to like her. But there was something genuine in her voice, something that didn't match the homewrecker I'd painted in my mind. "Congratulations on your promotion," I said. "Must be exciting." "It is. Terrifying too." She lowered her voice. "Between us, I'm not sure I'm ready, but Richard believes in me. He's been so supportive through everything. My divorce, the custody battle, starting over at 34. I don't know what I would have done without him." Divorce. Custody battle. This woman had a story. A complicated one. "He sounds like a good mentor," I said carefully. "The best." Victoria's eyes drifted to Richard again. "His wife is a lucky woman. He talks about her constantly. Margaret this, Margaret that. 40 years of marriage. Can you imagine? That's the dream, isn't it?" I nearly dropped my tray. "He talked about me? Constantly? Does he?" I managed. "Oh yes. He says she's the reason he succeeded at all, that she believed in him when no one else did." Victoria sighed. "I hope I find that someday. Someone who sees me the way he sees her." My head was spinning. This didn't match. None of this matched the story I'd constructed. The secret jewelry, the lies about tonight, the way he looked at her. If Victoria was just a protégé, then where was the bracelet? Who was it for? "I should get back to work," I said. "Congratulations again." I retreated to the kitchen, my mind racing. Maybe I was wrong. Maybe the receipt was for Melissa's birthday. Maybe Richard had a perfectly innocent explanation for everything. But then why lie about tonight? Why tell me spouses weren't allowed when clearly other partners were here? I'd seen Tom's wife, Barbara, at the main table. Susan Chen's husband was by the bar. I pulled out my phone and texted my son, David. He lived in Seattle now, but we talked every week. "Quick question. Did Dad give you money recently? For an anniversary gift for Karen, maybe?" The response came immediately. "No. Why? Is everything okay?" I didn't answer. The party was winding down when I finally cornered my husband. Not as myself, as the anonymous server who'd been invisible all night. I approached him at the coat check, where he stood alone, waiting. "Sir? Can I help you with your coat?" Richard turned. His eyes passed over me without recognition. His own wife of 38 years, and he didn't know me. "Yes. Thank you. Number 47. I retrieved his coat, the charcoal wool I'd bought him for Christmas 3 years ago. As I helped him into it, I noticed his phone buzz. He glanced at the screen and smiled, a real smile. Then he quickly pocketed it. "Big night," I said. "Retirement. That's quite a milestone." "It is." He seemed surprised that I was making conversation. 40 years. Went by fast. "I'm sure your wife is proud." Something flickered across his face. Guilt? Sadness? Both? "I hope so," he said quietly. "I hope she knows how much she means to me. I haven't been very good at showing it lately. Why not? He looked at me then. Really looked. For a moment, I thought the disguise had failed, that he'd finally see through the glasses and the apron to the woman beneath, but he just shrugged. Life gets in the way, I suppose. You wake up one day and realize you've been so focused on the destination that you forgot to appreciate the journey. He buttoned his coat. And by the time you figure it out, you're 65 and wondering if you still have time to make it right. You do, I said. You always have time. He smiled sadly. I hope you're right. He pressed a $20 bill into my hand. Thank you for listening. Merry Christmas. And then he was gone. I stood there in the coat check room, holding the $20, crying silently into my borrowed apron. The next morning, I sat in my car outside a coffee shop, waiting. I'd told Richard I was having breakfast with my book club. Another lie added to our collection. But I needed answers, and there was only one person who could give them to me. Victoria Sinclair arrived at 9 sharp, looking nothing like the glamorous woman from the party. She wore jeans and a sweater, her hair in a messy bun, dark circles under her eyes. She ordered a coffee and sat at a corner table, pulling out her laptop. I watched her for 10 minutes, gathering courage. Then I walked in. Is this seat taken? Victoria looked up, confused. Then recognition dawned. You're the server. From last night. I'm also Richard's wife. The color drained from her face. What? Margaret Henderson. I sat down across from her, married 38 years, 2 children, 1 granddaughter on the way. Victoria's mouth opened and closed. I don't understand. Why were you working at the party? I wasn't. I was spying. I folded my hands on the table. My husband told me I wasn't invited, told me it was employees only, so I went undercover to find out why. That's... Victoria shook her head. That's insane. Is it? My husband has been lying to me for months. Secret receipts, unexplained absences, and then I see him with you, a beautiful young woman he's been mentoring for 2 years without ever mentioning your name. You think I'm having an affair with Richard. It wasn't a question. I don't know what to think. That's why I'm here. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Then she laughed. Not a cruel laugh, a sad one. Mrs. Henderson, I am not having an affair with your husband. I'm gay. I blinked. What? I'm a lesbian. I came out during my divorce, which is partly why it was so messy. My ex-husband didn't take it well. She sipped her coffee. Richard knows. He's one of the few people at work who does. He's been incredibly supportive. My head was spinning again. But the way you looked at him last night, the touch on the shoulder, gratitude, respect. He reminds me of my father, who passed away when I was 20. Victoria's eyes softened. I look at Richard and see the dad I wish I'd had more time with. That's all. Then why didn't he invite me to the party? Why all the secrecy? Victoria set down her cup. I think you should ask him that. But I can tell you what he told me last week when we were preparing for the transition. What did he say? He said he was planning something. A surprise for you. He made me promise not to say anything. But, she hesitated. He said it's been killing him, keeping it secret. He said he knows he's been distant, that he's been so focused on making everything perfect that he's neglected what matters most. A surprise? What kind of surprise? I honestly don't know. But Margaret, the way that man talks about you, it's not the way a cheating husband talks, it's the way a man in love talks. A man who's terrified he's running out of time to show it. I drove home in a daze, Victoria's words echoing in my head. A surprise. Richard was planning something. But what? And why would that require excluding me from his retirement party? I pulled into our driveway and sat there, staring at the house we'd lived in for 32 years. The oak tree David and Melissa had climbed as children. The porch swing where Richard and I had sat on summer evenings, planning our future. The garden I'd planted and he'd pretended to help with. We'd built this life together. Every brick. Every memory. Was I about to tear it all down over a misunderstanding? I got out of the car and walked inside. Richard was in his study, surrounded by papers. He looked up when I entered, surprised. Book club finished early? There was no book club. I sat in the leather chair across from his desk. Richard, we need to talk. He set down his pen. Okay, I was at your party last night. What? How? It was employees only. No, it wasn't. Tom's wife was there, Susan's husband. I saw them. I watched his face carefully. You lied to me. You specifically told me I couldn't come. Richard went pale. Margaret, I can explain. Then explain. Because I've spent the last month convinced you were having an affair. I found a jewelry receipt, Richard. $8,000. You've been secretive and distant. You've been coming home late. And then you deliberately excluded me from the biggest night of your career. He closed his eyes. Oh God, Margaret, I'm so sorry. Sorry for what? What have you been hiding? Richard stood up slowly. He walked to his desk drawer, pulled out a thick folder, and handed it to me. This. I opened it. Inside were brochures, dozens of them. For a villa in Tuscany, for cooking classes in Paris, for a 2-month Mediterranean cruise. I've been planning our retirement, Richard said quietly. Our retirement. Together. I wanted it to be perfect, every detail, every destination. I've been meeting with travel agents, researching restaurants, booking tours. For 2 months? For 6 months. He sat on the edge of his desk. I wanted to surprise you at the party. That was the plan. They were going to bring you in at the end, and I was going to announce our trip. I've got a slideshow. A whole presentation. Then why tell me I couldn't come? Because I panicked. He ran his hands through his hair. The surprises kept getting delayed. The villa wasn't confirmed until last week. The cruise tickets didn't arrive. I didn't want you there asking questions, figuring it out before everything was ready. And the bracelet? Richard walked to his closet and retrieved a small jewelry box. He handed it to me. Open it. Inside was a diamond bracelet. Delicate, beautiful, with a small charm attached. Our coordinates, he said. The exact spot where we had our first date. That little diner in Savannah. I had to special order the charm. It took 2 months. I stared at the bracelet through blurring tears. Richard, I know I've been terrible, he said. I know I've been secretive and absent and all the things a husband shouldn't be. But I was trying to give you something. 40 years, Margaret. 40 years you've stood by me. You believed in me when I was nobody. You raised our children while I was chasing promotions. You smiled through every boring company dinner and never complained. He knelt beside my chair, taking my hands. I wanted to spend every penny of my retirement fund showing you the world. I wanted to finally give you the adventures we always talked about but never had time for. I wanted to prove that the next 40 years, however many we have left, belong to you. I was crying now, ugly, heaving sobs that I couldn't control. You idiot, I gasped. You absolute idiot. I thought you were leaving me. I thought you'd found someone younger and prettier and were going to throw away everything we built. Leave you? Richard looked horrified. Margaret, I would never, there's no one else. There's never been anyone else. You're it for me. You've always been it. Then why didn't you just tell me? Because I wanted one thing, just once, to be about you. Not about the kids or the company or my career. About you. About us. He squeezed my hands. I wanted you to feel like a priority. Like you were worth the planning and the secrets and the money. Because you are, Margaret. You're worth everything. I pulled him into a hug, both of us crying now. 40 years of partnership and struggle and love colliding in that small study. You could have just said that, I whispered. I know. I'm an idiot. Yes, you are. I pulled back, wiping my eyes. But you're my idiot. Richard laughed, that deep, genuine laugh I'd missed so much. I still want to give you the presentation, he said. Tom helped me with the slides. There's music and everything. Later. I kissed him softly. Right now, just sit with me. We sat together in that study for hours, looking through the brochures, planning our adventures. Tuscany in spring, Paris in fall, the Greek islands in summer. All the dreams we'd deferred for decades, finally within reach. But here's what I realized, as the afternoon light faded and Richard fell asleep on my shoulder. The trips didn't matter. Not really. The bracelet was beautiful, but I would have loved a $20 gift just as much. What mattered was this, sitting together, being present, choosing each other after all these years. I'd spent weeks convinced my husband was betraying me, when really, he was trying to love me. He'd done it clumsily, secretively, in a way that almost destroyed us. but the intention was pure. And isn't that marriage? Two imperfect people, stumbling toward each other in the dark, trying desperately to show love in whatever broken way they know how? 3 months later, I sat on the balcony of a villa in Tuscany, watching the sun set over the rolling hills. Richard was inside, attempting to cook pasta from scratch. I could hear him cursing at the dough, and it made me smile. My phone buzzed. A photo from Melissa.